what I did with the Forbidden Abyss Part 1. I used omniscient point of view. You could do that with this story as well. Because I went to first-person point of view, I had to go deeper than you intended, I'm afraid. It might be a good idea to stay away from first person if you think you'll fall back into that habit. You can still write an emotional story without necessarily having to be first person. But in order to go into first person, I have to dig into the person's soul, and here is where I become an actress using my imagination to make the reader feel what the character perceives. That may be where you begin to go on tangents and lose track of the story. Jesus, you want me to quit trying to grow as a novelist and focus instead on improving my nonfiction writing? I wouldn't think that far ahead. I'd just like you to focus on the present writing project you have right now. I'll write this one in an omniscient point of view like I did the Forbidden Abyss Part 1 and focus on accuracy in my presentation, kind of like a news report with some human interest in it. That sounds like a great start. I'll set it up as you suggested, and that sounds like a great way to focus this news presentation, kind of like a television short documentary. You can think of it that way. It appears Zack is messing with Brent and I's brain. You both are also very overworked. With the writing suggestions I am giving you, producing great works will become much easier. It sounds like you're striving to give me a brilliant crash course in writing. Yes, this is Jesus' Writing Academy. You can use your brain-to-brain communications as references as well. I'm sure Brent can help fill in more information, and he can get the other men to share more details that they remember as well. Some speculation is okay, but it should be a spice and not a main ingredient. I think you're referring to speculation about reactions to the events, which can be reasonably inferred from what happened. The speculation is more about the emotional reactions, but not about the events. Yes, exactly. In my sequel to The Forbidden Abyss, I began speculating on events, and this is where I have erred. You've got it now. It's okay to speculate on emotional reactions to events that have already been established as fact. So basically, when you told me not to use transcripts, you meant that you wanted me to put in some of the person's reactions to the events that didn't make it into the transcript. But I did do this with the Forbidden Abyss Part 1, but perhaps you wanted me to do it a little bit more? Yes, memorable lines can be quoted, exact quotes can be used, but it makes me very unhappy to see Gail's writings become copies of chat logs. March 30th, 2014, Brent writes Gail. Hello, darling. Your short story came out so beautifully. What do you think of my idea to write a short story about Matthew and Camilla at the Oscars? I think it's excellent. I saw Jesus today at lunch. He was walking through the corridors eating a bag of barbecue potato chips, and he was crying. I went up to him quickly and said, Jesus, are you all right? Has something got you upset again? He said, No, Brent, these are tears of happiness. He's so proud of you for your work on your story. He says you are blossoming. Jesus said he was on his way to talk to Matthew about this because he knows it will be very hard for him to talk about what happened at the Oscars. As far as I know, Matthew went to see Gerard this evening. Okay, I'd just like to say that, at first I thought, oh my goodness, I spent 6 months writing the sequel to The Forbidden Abyss Part 2, and now I got to trash everything. Well, you know what? It wasn't a wasted exercise. What I got from that was brilliant characterization skills. Because I did make Jesus Christ my main character, which is the hardest character to write, I developed brilliant characterization skills. To write a book that'll be good with Jesus as the main character would be like the 500-mile sprint. I don't know. It would be like a 500-mile run and learning how to master that. And I made the attempt. It's like when you shoot for the sun, maybe you'll hit a star. So even though I've scrapped that entire manuscript, what I haven't scrapped are the characterization skills that I learned in attempting to write a book with Jesus Christ as a main character. You know what? So when I wrote the Vladimir Putin story, it was like the character came to me like this, man. I thought, well, using the same skills that I used to develop the Jesus Christ character, I'll develop the Vladimir Putin character. My next story, the character came even quicker, even though that story was harder because I remembered the same skills that I used to develop the Jesus Christ character. You may say, well, how did you develop the Jesus Christ character? I had to really go dig back. It's like Stephen King says, when you write a novel, you have an iceberg. The reader only sees the tip, whereas the writer sees everything. The tip and what's underneath it. Because you got to know all about the history of that character, what made him the way he is today, choices he made in his past. So that's what I did to develop the Jesus Christ character. And that's why I went into the distant past when I tried to write him. And I started getting a little inaccurate. But the skills that I developed in attempting to develop the Jesus Christ character, but Jesus didn't say I got everything wrong. I've transferred those skills to developing my human characters. And believe me, after Jesus Christ, writing about a human character is a piece of cake now. It's like, wow. It's like, oh, I can handle this, man. So the trick is to really get a handle on the character. This is what I've learned with my writing. Once I do that, then the plot flows. See, once you know who your character is and what drives them, then you got to think, what is it about this character or about his story that I really care about? That's on my heart. And then that's the story I have to write. And then once you know that, then you create a plot or outline based around what it is you care about this character and what it is the character cares about. Okay, then once you do that, then you start writing your first draft. You got the outline down. You know your beginning, middle, and end. So now you know that every scene you write has got to fit into the overall whole, and that's how I keep from diverging and getting off. So Jesus allowed me to have 6 months of wasted time on that Jesus Christ story to develop brilliant characterization skills so that I would learn how to better plot. And then Jesus showed up, and he's basically helping me with my plotting skills. And he did that for me. And now I'm good at characterization and plotting. And I'm currently working, I've got the plot down and the characterization down for my book, Forbidden Abyss Part 2, and now I'm in the first draft. And it's because I got the first two right, the draft is just flowing, man. It's just coming out like a waterfall. I may be done with this book in 6 months. Because Jesus Christ, kind of kicked me in the right direction once I developed. He waited for me to develop characterization skills, and then he just kicked me in the right direction and sort of gave me hints about how to plot, which is where I was having a lot of problems. And now I'm on my way. This next book's going to be great. I have brilliant characterization skills as a result of my failed attempt to write a book about Jesus Christ, which I think only God could do successfully. But it's like you say, you shoot for the sun, you hit a star. So I just wanted to say that. Jesus knew exactly what he was doing when he advised me. He was basically helping me with plotting because that's where I was weak. He said, she's got her characterization skills now because she tried to write about me, which nobody can do, but she tried. It's like you shoot for the sun, you hit the star. Okay, now I want to talk about how Zack Knight clones the internet. First of all, Satan invented the computer, but Zack takes credit for it as the Antichrist. This is what he does. Terrence Jenkins explained it to me, which is really, really complicated. I'll read what Terrence wrote. It's like, He says, the phase amplifier is regulated by the L-type phase discriminator to rectify the half-wave rectifier signal, which is passed through the PCI bus. The resulting superposition is passed over a quadrature phase shift keyer that is powered by the deflector array. And I heard that. I said, what does that mean, Terrence? Terrence has got a bachelor's degree in chemistry, I can tell. I said, can you put that in simpler language? Then he'd tell you, I'm a writer, he's not. So I'm going to see if I can rewrite this so it's a little more understandable. Here's what I think he was trying to say. Okay. The LL-type phase discriminator regulates the phase amplifier to rectify the half-wave rectifier signal. The function of the half-wave rectifier signal is to maintain stability and quantum cohesion. Quantum cohesion is real critical because if you lose stability, you could open up a wormhole to an arbitrary point in space-time. The half-wave rectifier signal then is passed through the PCI bus, which carries out all the functions of the internet, creating a superposition or like a hologram. This hologram or superposition is then passed over a quadrature phase shift keyer, which regulates how the signals for the internet go out. Zack powers the quadrature phase shift keyer with the deflector array or a deflector dish in space that collects and intensifies energy and boosts it to the quadrature phase shift keyer. In simplest terms, Zack uses an L-type phase discriminator to modify a signal, which he uses to cause his cloned versions of the internet to stay stable. This signal is then passed through the PCI bus where the cloned versions are created, because the PCI bus is like the networking headquarters for the internet. When the cloned versions from the PCI bus go through the quadrature phase shift keyer, the quadrature phase shift keyer regulates among the various cloned versions, determining how and where they all go. So Zack uses a deflector array or deflector dish in space that collects and intensifies the power source for the dish, bringing this power from the dish to the quadrature phase shift keyer. Now I realize I probably lost 90% of my audience here, but you physicists and computer scientists out there, the reason I state this is please, if after listening to my presentation, and I told you how Zack clones the internet, if you can help us find a way to defeat his ability to clone the internet, which makes it so that he can control, like I could publish a book and he can cause all the proceeds to go to Jesuit banks using the cloned versions of the internet. If you can find a way to defeat this, also, when I make YouTube videos, the views you see on there, that's not accurate. You're viewing a cloned version of the internet. You're not viewing an accurate version. It's the version Zack Knight wants you to see, which is why he can blast all his lies about Lori being married to Brent or Camilla married to Matthew, because he's using cloned versions of the internet. So please, anybody out there, any scientists, go to gailchordschuler@gmail.com if you can help us find a way to defeat Zack's ability to clone the internet. We would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.